welcome everybody to Tales from the Jails. We're here live in partnership with Say TNS Media Group. It's a team and the family. We got a special guest today. You know, someone who's we always seeing on Instagram and the internet. Someone who's always, putting on for the prisons and spreading the awareness of the prisons. Our guy, Chris Willars, here along with my partner, Brahim Jackson. I want to welcome you to the show, Chris. What's going on, man?
Man, I'm glad to be here, man.
And we're glad to have you. So, you have a lot of things going on, with you. I know you have the foundations and, you're, everywhere speak about prison reform. Can you kind of explain to us your story? Like, I know you did what you said, 17. How many years you did in prison?
16 years, 11 months.
You did 16 years in prison. If you want to elaborate to the fan base, the audience who don't know, what led you to going in prison?
Yeah, so, and I love telling my story, and I'm glad to be up here, man. I appreciate y'all for having me out here in Philly. Basically in 2003, I was sentenced to 144 years. One evening, one night, I drove my cousin, two of his homeboys, to a spot. They stuck it up. I never left the vehicle. And on top of that, they never used a real weapon. They used a BB gun. Never touched a BB gun, but still, by the time it was all said and done, I ended up with a 144-year prison sentence in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they went into what was it, a bodega? What was this?
It's a restaurant. It was just, it's a small mom and pops. Yeah.
And they gave you 144 years. So let me ask you a question, because we always talk about this, because this can be something that, that can help the youth or anyone that's in a life of crime.
Yeah.
So you went to trial.
Yeah. Well, a version of it.
Okay.
I didn't get to go to trial, and that's why I'm glad to hear the story, especially to the youth, because there's a whole generation of young people to this day, like 18 to 22, that are getting locked up, if not 16 to 22. But when we got locked, I was the last one of my co-defendants to get locked. And when it went down, they ran into my grandmother's house. My grandmother was freaking out. I pulled up to my grandmother's. She was like, the detectives were out here, the police. So I went to go turn myself in maybe about an hour later. And when I went into the police station, they cuffed me up. They brought me into the interrogation room. And within 15 minutes, they gave me an opportunity to go home scot-free. It wouldn't have had to do a day, a minute, a second, none of that. I would have never had to touch a cell. But they told me straight up right then and there, they're like, yo, you're the youngest. At the time, I was in the military, United States Air Force. You never got any trouble. You were probably just running with them. We want them. We don't want you. And, back then, especially back then, it was the big no snitch culture. People were wearing the shirts, all that. You know what I'm saying? And immediately, within like 2-3 minutes, I was like, nah, I'm not taking that. I turned it down twice, the opportunity to go home. And because of that, as the detectives were getting up from the table, they told me, they're like, well, we're going to make sure you get a life sentence. And from that, I didn't get a plea or anything. Most people get a plea deal, something offered that they could sign off instead of going to court. So I had an opportunity to go in front of a judge without a plea or straight in front of the jury. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, it made more sense to go in front of the judge and basically put myself at the mercy of him so I can get back in court. If I went in front of a jury, whatever time they gave me, I wouldn't have been able to appeal. Not in that way. Yeah.
Wow. Now, next question. How did they know that you were involved? What happened?
Man, crazy story. And to anybody watching this, it's funny because I used to sit there in prison year in, year out and listen to all the masterminds that were getting ready to go back out and do whatever they were going to do. But for us, maybe 2 weeks after that incident occurred, what I didn't know was they were still running around doing what they were doing outside of that situation where I was involved. And ironically enough, on a humbug, my cousin, one of the co-defendants, they were living together, his child's mother, a baby. They lived in an apartment complex. And the neighbors were walking upstairs with their groceries, and they heard loud music. They heard a baby crying in his apartment, and they smelled smoke, weed smoke or whatever. And they were concerned citizens. They called the police department. The police came to do a welfare check at the apartment, make sure the baby was good. They came and knocked on my cousin's door, and when they knocked on his door, he thought it was me. He opens the door. The police are there. They smelled the smoke. They were able to go into the apartment, shake down, do whatever they were doing. They didn't find anything. Baby was good, all that. But they found one thing. They found a money bag.
Wow.
They found a money bag. People ask me all, like, to this day, like, why would they hang? I don't know. I don't know why they would hang on to that, because I wasn't part of that decision process. But anybody watching this, man, you might know what you're doing with your co-defendants in the moment, but you don't know what's going on afterwards. So,
That's messed up. That's a valuable piece of information. You just, like you said, in the moment, yeah, but everybody got to separate.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And you don't know what that person is doing with his own time.
Yeah, the streets are treacherous, man. Just because he's your best friend and your brother, whatever, in broad daylight at night, that's not what it is all the time. So, yeah.
So they find a money bag, and then automatically they go into an investigation mode, and then what's ultimately led to him being arrested.
Well, yeah, his homeboys first, then him, and then me. You know, they one by one grand jury indictments. And
so they told on you. Somebody told on you, basically.
No question.
Do you know who it was?
Oh yeah, yeah. I ran into him later on in the bid too. One of them, but two of the co-defendants, not my cousin, the two homeboys. For the most part, they were the ones talking. I say for the most part because my cousin said something too. But what stuck out to me through it all was after I got locked up, turned down the opportunity to go home, they placed me in solitary confinement in the jail because our case was high priority. They had never, where we were at in Virginia, robberies weren't happening. And like I said, I didn't know that they had some other things going on. So probably like the third day I'm sitting there in solitary confinement, I'm waiting for my tray, really not the tray because I couldn't eat the food yet, really just waiting for something, the little cartons of orange juice to come through in the morning. And my tray slots opens up, boom. And I look, I get up, get myself together waiting for the tray or whatever. And all of a sudden I'm looking up because nothing's coming. And I see the little radio, the tape player get dropped, boom. And I looked up and it was the detective. And he sits the tape player on the tray slot and he press play. And it was one of the guys. He was just breaking down the whole situation, putting other things on me that I wasn't even there for. I mean, he gave up a whole mixtape.
Dang.
Yeah.
So next question. After going through that, how do you feel about informants or they say rats and people that tell? How do you feel about those type of people that do that?
As a civilian now,
as
a law-abiding citizen, I mean, I just overall, I think it's sad that we live in a society and that, without going all the way off, but as somebody that's black and brown, that we haven't figured out that they exist and that they look like us. So that's just my thought. They exist. Where there's good, there's the opposite. And for everybody out there that's facing a life sentence with your homeboy, more than likely they're not going to take that. They're going to pass that to you. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm going to ask you this then. How did you feel at that time when it happened? Like, what was the feeling going through your mind, your body? Like, what was going on with you when you heard that tape, that tape play?
I mean, I think immediately, in full transparency, as a 42-year-old man now, I think for a few seconds I was like, dang, I should have took the opportunity if I was going to go down like that. I remember the detective telling me before I said no the second time, he's like, yo, you really going to choose the streets over your mother? And I was like, if that's how you say it, if that's how you see it, And, maybe for a few seconds it flashed because I knew once I heard that recording, I'm in the Commonwealth of Virginia, I already know.
Ain't too much more help you can get.
No, there's no help. I got a public defender. I don't know anything, looking back at the situation, I don't know nothing about courts and none of that. But I knew I was in trouble because the Commonwealth of Virginia, especially back then, it was really well known that there was a lot of snitches, a lot of informants in the system. And if you weren't on that side, you was going to end up getting 20 years. And that was the average time that was being given to the brothers around then.
Wow. So you go to trial or whatever, and then you get 144 years.
Yeah, that was crazy.
How did you feel? What was going through your mind when they gave you 144 years?
Yeah, so shout out to my public defender who got. No, don't shout out to the public defender, man. For real. But there's some good public defenders out there, though. I know a few that really are fighting, but mine was a piece of garbage, and that's straight up. Um, he pushed my court date up for sentencing up like a month and a half. So I get woke up one morning, random morning. I'm still thinking I got time to prep for court, at least mentally or whatever. They wake me up, take you down to the bullpen. I'm telling them, yo, I ain't got court. My court date's not. They get me all the way to the courthouse. My public defender walks in. He's like, yeah, we moved your court date up. I'm like, yo, you didn't communicate that. He's like, they were supposed to tell you at the jail. I was like, man, you're my lawyer, like, you know what I'm saying? And he said, well, listen, they're getting ready to sentence you today. The best we can do is get you 35 to 54 years to do. There's no parole in Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm 19. So when he says 35 to 54 years, I'm doing the math. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna be in my 50s, like, or dead. And luckily, I had enough courage to do what a lot of young people don't, which is why I work with young people now in the court system. But I told him, I was like, yo, I can't do that. And he got offended. Like, he got offended that I told him I couldn't take the number that he was gonna be able to get me through the Commonwealth. So
this is old. I'm gonna cut you off, but this is an older guy or younger guy?
It's an older white man, Italian guy. He used to come in now as a man, but back then his suit used to be disheveled. He used to smell like liquor on his breath. Like, this is stuff I remember. But in the moment, you're young, you don't. And he gets mad when I tell him I'm not doing that. So he literally says to me as a 19-year-old kid, he said, well, I gave you 2 minutes to figure out what I can tell them. I said, what do you mean?
To figure out for you to figure out what him to tell him.
Yeah. And he walks off. He walks off. And as a 19-year-old kid, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out how much time from my life I can give and survive in a prison, and that would make them happy. So I'm watching, and it's ironic, I watched a young kid from Philly. He was 16 years old. We called him Philly. 16 years old, he was in there with us. He used to ball lights out crazy. But he had got a robbery charge with his co-defendant for a pizza man in the same city or whatever. And he wasn't the trigger man, none of that. They ended up giving him 2 life sentences for 1 joint. And I was sitting there and I was like, man, I'm going to tell him I want to be home before I'm 40. And for some people, y'all might not understand that, but the way I looked at it, at least I'd be alive. Like, I felt like I could survive 20. And that might sound crazy, but if at that time in the system, what's going on? So when he come back in, that's what I told him. I said, man, I just want to be home before I'm 40. And he said, all right. He walks out there. Next thing I know, they call me out there. You know, they line me up next to him. We go through it. My mom gets up there on the stand, you know, begs for mercy. I get up there. I say, I'm sorry, you know, all that. And then the judge ended up giving me 144 years, all suspended, but 19. So I had to do 85% of that.
I hope everybody's enjoying the episode. What was going through your mind when you heard that?
What was going through my mind was, prior to this, never got in trouble. United States Air Force, BB gun, didn't touch it. Nobody got physically harmed or even touched. So these are the things that were going through my mind. And then I was watching, you know, I'm watching people that don't look like me with similar charges coming out with 5 years, 10 years.
Wow. Yeah. Who was this judge? Do you remember the judge's name?
Judge Scott. Yeah.
I asked, older guy, young guy?
Older black guy.
Older black guy.
That's one thing about getting sentenced. You'll never forget that judge that sentenced you, ever.
Yeah.
Especially to that type of time.
Yeah.
You will remember him to the day you die.
Yeah. But it's so crazy, though, because for anybody that if you watch my story or if you check out, he kind of saved me. It sounds crazy, but, man, I don't know. You know, if he wasn't there and it was the other judge that was at circuit court, they wouldn't. I wouldn't have been able to do this interview.
All right. Tell us why you say that. Why do you say that? Like, what was it that he did?
Well, prior to going to court, you know, you're asking the old heads about the judges, and the other judge was an older white lady, and she was just known for being vicious with the sentence, and no second chances. And with robberies, she was known like starting off 40 plus years. Like she just didn't want in that jurisdiction. So with even with him giving me that time, he still gave me a chance to get home. So
Wow. So, all right, man, 144 years.
That's life.
So when did it did the time hit you like when you first heard it, or did you have to get back to like the prison and?
Yo, what's crazy is I was relieved.
Wow.
And I'm just telling you what I was. Again, I'm a 19-year-old kid though, right? As a 42-year-old with a 20, I would not be relieved, right? Like my
Nowhere near.
how I see the world and everything is different. But as a 19-year-old kid, I had a release date, and a lot of my partners that were coming, to the jail getting locked, they weren't getting release dates. So, and then they had me in a high priority. They had me in the max pod. Everybody in there had like 30, 40. So I'm coming in there with less than 20. I got 19, 85% of that, 16 years, 11 months, or whatever, 16, 17. I come home in my 30s. And again, it sounds crazy to anybody that's never dealt with the system, but I'm from a place where they bury you.
Yeah. Wow. So now you go to prison. So you go to prison. What was your, like you get there, like what was the defining moment that for you, like that? Hold up, this is prison. Like what hit you?
Yeah. So at the jail, I had a little reputation, like whatever. Me and some of the youngins, we clicked up or whatever. We thought we were badass, whatever, right? When you get to prison, nobody cares about that. Like you're not in your town or your city or wherever, And they sent me straight to Sussex too. It's a level 4. Over 70% of the camp had life sentences. But my second day there, I got approached by some guys from Richmond. And I had pulled, just like the day before, I pulled my box out, put it against the wall, sat on it, just watched the block. Didn't get involved. It wasn't bothering nobody like that. But these guys approached me. It's 5 of them. And they was just talking trash. And they started joking. And they weren't joking with me. They were joking, at me. And I stood up off my box and got jumped. Like my second day in. For no reason other than minding my business. Some other young people came over talking trash. And I stood up because I wasn't going to go for it. And I realized, I was like, I'm in prison now, for sure.
Wow.